I work for a major broker dealer. Like my company runs underneath a major broker dealer, and we don't need to go into too much detail, but they are very, very risk averse, extremely risk averse, to the point where I'm like, look, hey, we're doing investments, right? No risk, no reward. Okay, so if you're not taking risks as a company, you're not making you're not going to make the reward. But a lot of times when it comes to compliance and regulation and all this kind of stuff, it's easier for them. You got a corporate employee who's on a salary, right? And it's easier for that person to say no rather than take a risk, say yes, and they're risking their job if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And it's like, it's frustrating because you're on the inside. You got these creative ideas and you're trying to put something forward, and then you got somebody who's like afraid to lose their job.
Yeah, exactly.
And they just say no.
Yeah.
Instead of how. Right? I think the question shouldn't be yes or no. It should be how. Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
How do we do these things? Anyways, I totally relate to what you're talking about. Okay,
Yeah.
So you were getting frustrated because they're like just poo-pooing on all your ideas, and decided to like, hey, you know what? I'm going to use my creative energy for me. Right?
Exactly.
Okay, so tell me about what happened.
Yeah, so this was a long stint. Like probably, I was at that company for 7-ish years until I finally cut the cord last year. But like a lot of people, the Tony Robbins of the world will always say, burn the boats and just go all in on the thing. But for me, it's now what people are calling quiet quitting. Before that had a name, essentially, of okay,
Yep.
I'll collect my paycheck. I will give you an ROI in the $80K you're paying me, but I'm not going to go too much above and beyond that. And that really paid off for me because, the business that we have now has grown and become successful, but the first 5 businesses, that probably 10 things I tried to launch and start were not, because I didn't have the skills, the expertise, the learnings, the lessons, the network. But it was 5 years of collecting a stable paycheck and not needing to pay the bills with my entrepreneurial pursuits that led me to ultimately eventually be able to make a pivot. So
Huge.
yeah. And to give you some specifics to your question, I've always been drawn to the online space, like what you're doing with your podcast and your personal brand and helping people and changing people's lives. That always really appealed to me. So initially it was in like the self-development wellness space. I was doing some of my own programs, helping other people grow and scale their businesses. But it was the last 2 years that I really pivoted to go all in on like what we're now doing with job stacking, remote job placement.
All right, so there's some lessons in this. I like what you said because, like you said, Tony Robbins, and I'm a big fan, but burning the boats, right? I agree to an extent. If you're going to jump and you're going to make that leap of faith and you're just going all in, if you're going to do that, yeah, burn the ship so you have no other opportunity or option but to make it work, right? It's like all or nothing, sink or swim type of a deal, right? But why put yourself in that position, right? What you're saying, and I agree with your method as well, especially for those folks that don't necessarily have the resources or the runway to get their side hustles off the ground, right? A lot of people, in financial services, I see it all the time. People are living paycheck to paycheck. Their financial runway isn't there yet to weather storms, to, take what it, do what it takes to get a business off the ground. People don't understand how tough it really is.
Yeah.
They think that, okay, I'm going to build a website, I'm going to build a product, and then people will just show up. If I build it, they will come.
Yep.
And it's like, no, that's not the way it works, man.
Yeah. And it's only getting harder because there's so much more competition. So the bar is raised. Like if you look at what a personal brand needs to be now to stand out versus maybe 10 years ago, you could have just had like an HTML website and maybe done what you just described.
100%.
But now, in every year that goes by, you need to be an expert in an extra, at least a few skills.
Yeah,
to
like
even compete.
1,000%. Like I remember, I started this podcast 7 years ago, January of 2018. Okay, and it was in a studio, like from the jump, 7 years ago. And at that time, it was like we stood out. We were like early adopters to the studio podcast game. Anyway, it was great. And now today, like this, all the, look, this is everywhere you go. I mean, and then you also have, like, to your point, people are getting in that they can do remote interviews now via Zoom or Restream or Riverside or any of these tools to do. So now it's like everybody can do a podcast. Anybody can do a podcast. So it's not that special. What it means is you have to deliver better content. You actually have to do a better job, bring on better guests, bring more value.
Yep.
To stand out, right? And now it's like even just having a podcast. So think about now it's like you need a podcast, you got to write a book, you've got to, speaker, author, coach. You got to do the whole gamut.
Sure.
Speak on stages, like, in order to really have a good, successful personal brand.
Absolutely.
Right? And then now we got AI. We're competing with AI influencers who aren't even real.
Yep. It's crazy. It's only going to get crazier.
Yeah. So I guess, guys, for those of you listening, even in his own story here, like, he took some time to build something on the side, and I think that's so important. Have a side hustle, invest in yourself, right? These big corporate companies, guys, listen, there's no loyalty there, right? And as the markets go up and down, they are hiring and firing. Okay, as the markets go up and down, every quarter they're reporting to the board saying, hey, the numbers aren't so great. We need to cut. And so they're not loyal to you. And you're going to invest all your time and energy in corporate America, and then they're just going to give you the axe. Okay, so to build a side hustle, a personal brand like you're talking about, I think is super important.